Hey guys, what's going on? It's Eli, back with another review video, and to round off sequel movie week, yes, you read the title, and as was teased in the last review video, well, we once again return to the Isle of Berk, where dragons live there, and, well, this being, the third and finale to the How to Train Your Dragon films. Yes, so that's right. From 2019, and again, to round off sequel movie week, How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. Yes. How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World. Yeah, I gotta say, because, The Hidden World, I thought was pretty good. Yeah, I found myself enjoying it. I seem to recall knowing, from what I've seen, that, although that, this movie, wasn't bad or anything, I think I heard that, I could be wrong, because I'm just saying, my point being is that I could have sworn that it wasn't, it didn't turn out to be the best in the franchise than, say, the first two. But that's not to say it's bad or anything. I think that so the first things I have to say about Hidden World, I think what the Hidden World has to offer with its storyline, what next adventure Hiccup and his fellow dragon riders get themselves into, and where they end up and go on a mission and quest where they leave their home, which being Berk, to find a new home, and maybe possibly where they're going to, and from what they know, especially Hiccup, even his late father knew this too, a hidden world where dragons reside. And yeah, because, where they would find, this new island that they would find, which would become the new Berk. It's not the hidden world, but when, say, Hiccup and Astrid find it, yeah, it's amazing, It's underneath this waterfall. And yeah, the waterfall is the bait, because, you wouldn't expect anything from this huge waterfall, but when you go down further in this waterfall, well, yeah, because what's, behind the waterfalls, it's breathtaking. Yeah. I think that the character-driven, the chemistry from these characters, and some of these characters, because the moments that they get, they're pretty funny. The flashbacks of Hiccup's late father, Stoic, are good. The main antagonist, this dragon hunter, doesn't bring in dragons alive, just, he was a pretty interesting villain, but the more I talk about him, just, yeah. And, new dragons that step in the third installment, especially since, well, for Toothless, finding love. And, yeah, the fact that also Dean DeBlois, of course, have to mention him, that he once again is the director of one of these How to Train Your Dragon films. I mean, having direct all three of them, with the first one, he not only directed that, but also his animation buddy, Chris Sanders, well, they both directed that. But for the next two installments, as well as the live-action remake, yeah, Dean DeBlois would take the helm, so, yeah, fully. And, the music and score by John Powell, beautiful animation, and, because even though some characters in the Hidden World, they don't have that much in this, that most notably goes for, say, Hiccup's mother, and, also, Aerith, yeah. There's not that much to them in the third installment, but I think with how much they had in the Hidden World, it was not bad at all, just couldn't really let them go to waste and such. And I think, yeah, for what was brought to those characters, and, say, Gobber and the others, not bad, not bad. The funny and emotional moments, the cute moments, of course, most notably from Toothless, and when he finds his love and such, yeah, it was all great. Great voice acting, and, not to mention that, the third How to Train Your Dragon film would be the first DreamWorks animated film to be distributed by Universal Pictures, because I'm sure, as you all know, before DreamWorks would officially become a part of the Universal family, and rightfully so, because I think, in my opinion, and I'm sure you would think so too, that you know, even before DreamWorks became a part of the Universal family officially, they always seemed like a good addition to Universal. I mean, you know, besides having a lot of DreamWorks stuff in the parks, I'm just saying, yeah. But my point being is that, yeah, because after DreamWorks and 20th Century Fox parted ways, and Captain Underpants was one of the last DreamWorks animated films to be distributed by 20th Century Fox, then stepped in Universal, whom, yeah, they would officially distribute the next DreamWorks animated films, starting with How to Train Your Dragon from there on, and again, DreamWorks officially becoming part of the Universal family, and that's good to see. Yeah, and unfortunately, I unfortunately didn't get a chance to experience this in theaters, and until now, I finally have seen The Hidden World. Hey, it's just one of those things, you know, and I've explained this before, and, you know, the same goes for any of you. Movies that you sometimes just don't get around to until now, you know, but yeah. Yeah, just overall, because, you know, as far as I remember knowing, you know, and again, if I'm correct, because The Hidden World, maybe not the real strongest in the franchise, like, maybe not even close to, say, the first two, but it's not bad at all. It delivers really well, and this being the third and final chapter, it round things out, literally, and, yeah, it was no disappointment. And for me, of course, yeah. And I'm sure the same goes for any of you. Any of you that got to experience The Hidden World in theaters, or later when it came out, say, on digital, DVD, Blu-ray, etc. Just, yeah, I'm sure, yeah. The same goes for you, that it was no disappointment for you, especially if you're huge fans of the How to Train Your Dragon franchise. Yeah. Okay, so, with the first things I've had to say about How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, and, you know, because also, number 3 isn't in the title. I mean, you could still call it How to Train Your Dragon 3, but still, you know. Anyway, so, again, with the first things I've had to say about The Hidden World, now, as always, for me, read the description / the story. All seems well on the Isle of Berk, as Vikings and dragons live together in peace and harmony. Now a Viking leader, Hiccup finds himself increasingly attached to Astrid, while his beloved dragon Toothless meets an enchanting creature who captures his eye. Well, both eyes, but when the evil Grimmel, if I'm pronouncing that right, launches a devious plan to wipe out all the dragons, Hiccup must unite both clans to find a caldera, a hidden land that holds the key to saving Toothless and his flying friends. Okay, so, with reading the description / the story out of the way, now, let's dive into the film itself. Yep. Yeah, so, of course, you know, the way this movie opens, no disappointment. You know, it starts off really good because misty evening and, well, we see our main, you know, dragon riders from Hiccup, once again being voiced by Jay Burchell, if I'm getting his last name right again, you know me sometimes, Astrid, America Ferrera, Snotlout, Jonah Hill, Fishlegs, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, if I'm still getting the last name right, and yeah, and this time Fishlegs, he's like, sported some facial hair. Well, I mean, because, you know, how older they've gotten some, just, yeah, the timing of these movies, yeah. And of course, Rough Nut, Kristen Wiig, and Tough Nut. Just Tough Nut because, well, Tough Nut is now being voiced by Justin Rappel because, yeah, unfortunately, T.J. Miller did not reprise the voice role of Tough Nut because, I'm sure some of you know, because some issues that, you know, at that time T.J. Miller was going through, just, yeah, so... But anyways, but, you know, still, I mean, he's a good actor, and he's funny in the movies that he's been in, and when he was the original voice of Tough Nut. But, you know, Justin Rappel, if I'm getting the last name right, he was no disappointment voicing Tough Nut. I think he did pretty well, filling in for T.J. Miller. And honestly, I remember now because, like, when watching the movie, it's like it didn't cross my mind, and it's like, I don't think you can really tell the difference, like, because I think Justin did pretty well, spot on, voicing Tough Nut. So yeah, anyways. So basically all of them, they are rescuing these dragons from these Vikings who are holding these dragons hostage. And yeah, by freeing the dragons and yeah, some funny moments between Hiccup and the other dragon riders, and of course Toothless being there. And yeah, some of the dragons they released, one most notably that Fishlegs is fond of, which being this dragon called the Crimson Goregutter. Yeah, and yeah, a description on the Crimson Goregutter. A dragon with antlers has a unique battle ability where it can launch molten lava from its mouth. Yeah, not to mention that the Goregutter dragon grows a friendship with this little tiny dragon that Fishlegs has. It's pretty funny. At times when they interact and they play, it's funny. And before they disembark, there's one dragon that, unbeknownst to them, and a little bit on Toothless, because he almost sensed the presence of this one dragon in a cage, but it was invisible. And this white Fury, the same breed of dragon as Toothless. Yeah, Toothless almost noticed that dragon, and the fact that this white dragon, this Fury, is female. Interesting. Well, and seeing as how that, well, as it was established in the first two that, you know, supposedly, because Toothless was the last of that breed of dragons, the Night Furies, but nope, turns out there's at least one more left, and that being this white-looking Fury dragon. But anyway, so they managed to, yeah, again, they managed to save these dragons and make their way back to Berk, and yeah, it's populated with so many dragons. It's pretty much like they're just about running out of room to keep these dragons safe and such. Yeah, and also, because, yeah, the other characters, in the third film, as I mentioned, because, yeah, Valka, Hiccup's mother, once again, Cate Blanchett, and, Eret, once again, Kit Harington, and, of course, Gobber, Craig Ferguson, yep. And Craig, Gobber, because, you know, he actually has a bit of a issue with how many dragons have populated the Isle of Berk, and even there are a few times where Gobber, you know, finds himself, you know, coming face to face with these tiny, you know, dragons, which they're called hobgobblers, and, you know, according to Gobber, because these hobgobbler dragon breed of dragons, the hobgobblers, like, you know, by coming face to face with them, you know, you're cursed and such. Yeah. Then at one point, because Gobber, he recommends and suggests to Hiccup and Astrid that they should get married, but neither one of them are ready for that yet. So yeah, I mean, even though they are, of course they're in love and being in a relationship, marriage is, they're not quite there yet. They're not ready. And also, and to go ahead and mention this, because a good chunk of times where Tough Nut has some conversations with Hiccup about, with him, you know, if he gets married and such, and like trying to give him advice or something, and even Tough Nut calling Hiccup by Hickey. Okay. Who'd have thought that happened? Not to mention that, also, Snotlout, he apparently has a thing and liking to be more precise, for Hiccup's mother. Okay, when did this happen? I'm not saying it's unnecessary, but geez, I mean, and knowing the character Snotlout, okay. And also, a few times where Snotlout is, you know, all, like, complaining towards Eret about, you know, Snotlout thinking that he's the brains, and he's got the brains, and so on, like, that whole thing. Well, that was pretty funny, too, yeah. But, yeah, and let's go ahead and come to the villains. Yeah, the main villain, of course, Grimmel. Yeah, this dragon hunter, you know, not bringing in dragons alive, but, yeah. But when he's hired to bring this one dragon, where, yeah, yeah, these three, main leading Vikings, whom are holding these dragons, you know, under, you know, cages and such, and yeah, We have Griseldel, yeah, if I'm saying that right, Griselda, yeah, the Grievous being voiced by Julia Emlyn. We have Chatai Khan, I got the first name right, being voiced by James Tsai, and we also have Ragnar the Rock, and Ragnar, well, I need to see his full name. Ragnar the Rock being voiced by Olafur Dari Olafsson. I'm getting that right? Yeah. So they've hired and brought in this dragon hunter by the name of Grimmel, being voiced by the great F. Murray Abraham. And yeah, who doesn't love F. Murray Abraham and with, his great acting? And, with him voicing the main antagonist for the third How to Train Your Dragon film and giving him an accent, oh yeah, he was great. Yeah, he was good. And, F. Murray Abraham is no stranger to playing villains. The one that I can most notably think of, and I know, of course, he's played more than just, say, one villain, but my point being is that I most notably think of, him as Urofo in Star Trek, Insurrection. And say what you will about Star Trek Insurrection for all of you Trekkies, including me, but I actually like Insurrection. And how can you not enjoy F. Murray Abraham in something Star Trek? Because, it's obvious that he was having the time of his life playing the main antagonist of a Star Trek film. But anyway, so, yeah. So, no doubt that, enjoyed playing evil once again, this time in the third How to Train Your Dragon film. So yeah, these three big main Vikings who have hired Grimmel, well, because by the mentioning of the Night Fury, because yeah, those dragons that Hiccup and the other dragon riders rescued, well, they were being transferred to those Vikings, and just so happens that, yeah, because some of those Vikings that were on that boat, and even, most notably, the one Viking that we first saw, he was the first character we saw, Ivar the Witless, yeah. And Ivar being voiced by David Tennant, yeah. And yeah, because David Tennant, he does two voices in the third film. Yeah, that character, and he also voices Spitelout. Okay, yeah. Well, not to mention that David Tennant being no stranger to being a part of the How to Train Your Dragon franchise, because he did some voices for, say, the first How to Train Your Dragon show that was on Cartoon Network, and I remember watching it, so yeah. So it's good to see, that David Tennant actually being a part of one of these movies. Yeah, even though, because he doesn't have a big, part in this movie, still, it's great to have him in this, yeah. But anyway, so again, Grimmel being hired to bring in this Night Fury, and yeah, because with the dialogue between Grimmel and the Vikings, not to mention that Grimmel is well aware of Hiccup and the fact that, yeah, because Hiccup is the son of the late Stoic, and he knew about Stoic and knew what the Isle of Berk was once like before, as of now, the Isle of Berk is now the home of all of these dragons and such, yeah, so yeah, he basically liked the old days of the Isle of Berk, and before, yeah, the dragons and the humans on the Isle of Berk were at peace. So yeah, Grimmel then agreeing to bring in the Night Fury and what he's going to do throughout this film, and to try to get the Night Fury, which being toothless and such, oh man, because then little does Hiccup and the others know and what they're going to deal with this time, even more intense, I guess, than, say, what they dealt with, say, in the second installment, right? Anyways. All right, to speed things up some, because, yeah, a moment between, say, Hiccup and Astrid, because the mentioning of marriage being brought up, but also Hiccup, as I recall, laying out some ideas and considerations, that eventually, yeah, moving from one island to the next, and, well, the mentioning of the hidden world. And possibly, yeah, that could be the new home and such. And even, like, also, like, during that sequence, because a little bit of playtime with Toothless and, Astrid's, dragon, Stormfly, yeah, because Hiccup's a mechanical leg piece, you know, because being used for fetch is funny. But then at one point, and even, like, say after Astrid gets on Hiccup, where it teases Hiccup on on his mother, you know, because of Snotlout, mentioning of Snotlout having a liking to his mother. It's funny, yeah. Just them having a good time and such, just, yeah. There's one moment where Toothless, he hears something, and he goes to investigate, and Hiccup and Astrid catching up to Toothless eventually, because, yeah, Toothless, you know, hears some groaning and such, you know, obviously from a dragon, and what Toothless discovers is what he almost discovered at the start of the film, the White, Fury, yes. And, Toothless, you know, the Toothless and that other Fury, their first encounters, and, you know, going well so far, but up until, like, say, when Hiccup and Astrid catch up to Toothless, and, yeah, because the White Fury was, yeah, just, like, you know, firing at Hiccup and Astrid, but Toothless stopping her, and, yeah, the White, Fury escaping and leaving, and, yeah, because with what Hiccup and Astrid just saw, the, this other Fury that, and, you know, and discovering that Toothless is not the only last remaining Fury. And it's pretty funny because when coming up with a name for the Fury, Hiccup first says Bright Fury, then Astrid says a Light Fury. And yeah, Light Fury is much better, so yeah, because, you know, for Toothless, he's the Night Fury. And for this female one, well, the Light Fury. Makes sense, and it works. And yeah, then, like, Hiccup mentioning this to the others about this female Light Fury, as it's now called, and, yeah. Then, like, say, at one point, Hiccup and Toothless, along with, Tough Nut, they try to go and find the Light Fury, and again, as I said, Tough Nut talking to Hiccup about, like, marriage and stuff like that, it's funny. But then at one point, Hiccup especially discovers something, these booby traps, and this, like, this dart, that has some, like, liquid in it, it's, like, purple liquid, and what the heck's going on? Well, because it turns out that, yeah, it's Grimmel, and, well, Eret, he's very familiar with Grimmel, and when going into full description to them on whom Grimmel is, and, yeah, and he's not going to be someone that easy for them to take on. But, you know, for Hiccup and the others, with what they've dealt with in the past, and, you know, heck, especially in the last/second installment, they're ready for anything. And hopefully for them, that they can manage to take down this guy. But still, little do they know what they're really dealing with. Okay, so then what happens next is, and by the way, because also Eret did mention that it would not be a good idea that Toothless would be near around Hiccup and such, because, yeah, because going after, you know, Toothless, the Night Fury, and, well, later that evening, Hiccup gets an unexpected greeting from Grimmel himself, made his way to the Isle of Berk, of course, and, well, no doubt because he set up those traps, and good thing they avoided/dodged them, especially that dart with some ingestion in it, you know, this purple liquid. That actually comes from, one dragon that, is under Grimmel's wing. Yeah, it's his very own dragon that he rides on. By the way, because that dragon that Grimmel has is very interesting and terrifying, because, yeah, I mean, obviously, when it comes to the bad guys in How to Train Your Dragon, their dragons are very scary and evil, just, yeah. And, Grimmel's dragon being, the Death Gripers, yeah, because, they can shoot out, like, liquid or something, like, and, well, basically, like, this dragon is like a dragon version of a scorpion, pretty much. Literally, because of its tail and so on, and what could it inject? Jeez Louise. You know, even, like, looking at some of the design to this breed of dragon, Yeah, I mean, because there's like a bit of like scorpion kind of to it, just, the tail. Yeah, so, yeah, this is one dragon that's definitely dangerous. But anyway, so, again, Grimmel making his way, and, even when, like, say, supposedly Toothless was right there with Hiccup in the room, well, Grimmel quickly shooting, some of that liquid into Toothless, knocking him out. And the dialogue that Grimmel says to Hiccup, and, first asking Hiccup if he should call Hiccup by, Hiccup or Hiccup, a hiccup, but no, just calling him by Hiccup. And Grimmel talking to Hiccup about, like, say, his late father and what he's going to be doing and such, and by taking down Hiccup and with Toothless and such, bringing in the Night Fury. But little did Grimmel know that Toothless was actually, a trick. It was like bait and such, because that wasn't actually Toothless. That was poor Fishlegs, because he took he took the dart, and yeah, he's knocked out. And yeah, they basically all gang up on Grimmel, but unfortunately, they're not able to take down and bring in Grimmel because, yeah, the dragons, that are following Grimmel, well, they caused some destruction, burning some of the village, the part of the village of Berk and such, and Grimmel warning/threatening to Hiccup that if Hiccup does not give him his Night Fury to him, then, yeah, everything that Hiccup loves will be destroyed, and so on. Yeah. And again, what was burned outside of the Isle of Berk was the first taste of what was gonna be happening. So, yeah. And then there's a meeting with all of the Vikings, and, what the heck are they gonna do? And because with Grimmel, really being a big threat to them, well, that's when the decision is made where, yeah, they will leave the island of Berk and find a new home. And hopefully still, if so, their new home could possibly be the Hidden World. And just, yeah. And also it's funny with Tough not just, I'm with Hiccup, just like what he specifically says. It's funny, a couple of times. Yeah. And, by the way, I didn't talk about Valka that much. Well, like I said, because, with Valka and Eret, with how much we get of them in the Hidden World, it's not bad at all. And there are times, of course, where Valka, some of the talk that she has with, say, like Hiccup and Astrid, and some advice that she gives is pretty well done. Yeah. Just, overall, I think with Valka's presence, in this, wasn't bad at all. I mean, it would have been nice if maybe we got more of her, especially on account that, Valka's the only parent that Hiccup has. Yeah, so, yeah. But, it's okay with how it turned out. From, like, say, her, Eret, and Gobber. So, yeah, they're not the big focuses, but still. I thought it was well executed for them. Anyways, so, yeah. So that's what they eventually do, because they pack up, all of them. They all ride on dragons, and there are a few boats, most notably one for the sheep, because, yeah, of course we have to have the sheep there, and even the sheep, they're in disguise as dragons. In fact, one sheep was enjoying the boat ride, it was funny. But yeah, so by this point, they've all left their home, the Isle of Berk, and they're making their way to a new place, and hopefully, again, being the Hidden World. Meanwhile, back at the Isle of Berk, because, yeah, the bad Vikings are present, and Grimmel, and yeah, because he was basically getting them and let them leave the Isle of Berk, because still, little does Hiccup and everyone else know exactly what Grimmel's actually doing. Yeah. And, well, because Hiccup and the others, they're falling for Grimmel's trick, because with them having left the Isle of Berk and, yeah, what Grimmel's going to do next, and, they will be followed, because, yeah, that especially goes for the White Fury, because apparently the White Fury is technically following them because, because the White Fury being in some connections with Grimmel, but yeah. But that is, of course, until, like, say, well, the more interactions that Toothless and the White Fury have. But, yeah, in fact, because up to this point, and with them still traveling, yeah, the White Fury emerges, and everybody's seeing this, and at one point the White Fury, like, well, like, Toothless then started to follow the White Fury with Hiccup on his back and such. Then at one point, the White Fury snatches Hiccup and drops him. But thankfully, Toothless saves him, just, yeah, not a word, says Hiccup to the others. But yeah, eventually, like, they find this one big island where they will rest for the evening. And, well, it's not the hidden world. That's what that's what all the Vikings think it is, but no. And because with all that traveling they've done, but, even Valka put it best that, they are cranky, hungry, and tired, just, yeah, understandable. So, yeah, eventually, because Hiccup then decides that, this is their new home, just, yeah, eventually in the film. This is where they would officially reside, their new Isle of Berk. And to speed things up some, because, like, at one point, another moment between Toothless and the White Fury, because, like I said earlier, the White Fury can turn invisible. So, yeah, at one point, Toothless did notice the White Fury, sensed her presence while invisible, and by following her, and yeah, this one sequence where, it's kind of similar to, in the first How to Train Your Dragon film, where, yeah, a moment between Hiccup and Toothless, on this, beach or something, and, making lines and drawing, just, yeah. And it's very cute, because with the interactions that Toothless and the White Fury have. And Toothless trying to make a good impression on the White Fury. And even when Hiccup shows up and tries to help out Toothless. But, Toothless, he's trying, but, yeah, even Hiccup can tell at a certain point that, it's not really going that good for Toothless. Yeah. But, eventually it would, and, even, like, say, when at one point, Toothless, like, makes a drawing on the sand, and, basically, it's a drawing of him, and Hiccup is surprised to see that now Toothless can draw good, and, then at one point the White Fury stepping on, the line of what, Toothless drew, and, and again, just like in the first one, because, with Hiccup accidentally, stepping on the line and Toothless growling, because when the White Fury does that, Toothless growls at the White Fury, but then the White Fury growls back, and Toothless is surprised and just... that was funny and cute, yeah. And besides, because, early on, Toothless did see these other dragons who were a couple and how they interact and, with their love for each other and the way they move in a certain way, just, yeah. And Toothless trying to do that, and even with, Hiccup was trying to help Toothless and, like, do this, and Toothless did that, like, dance like a chicken, just... and just doing this with his wings, like, you've seen the sequence, it's funny and delightful, just, yeah. But eventually Toothless gets there, making a good impression on the White Fury. And even when that happens, because at one point, and still, to speed things up some, because Toothless Hiccup, I hate when I get the names mixed up. Hiccup, he basically lets Toothless go free and to spend more time with the White Fury. However, because, yeah, Toothless didn't come back after that, and, yeah, and, still, because, like, when Toothless does, spend more time with the White Fury and the more interactions that they would have, and eventually, they would fall in love, yeah, and even, Toothless discovers something new in him that he can do because he's a Night Fury. And with what the White Fury shows off to Toothless that she can do, and with what Toothless discovers, and, it's also technically thanks to the White Fury, where Toothless discovers that he can produce lightning and electric, and, yeah, it's pretty cool. Just, yeah, something new and epic that Toothless discovered that he has in him, because he's a Night Fury. And by the way, because even, at one point, Toothless got a new, mechanical wing, and actually, this time, it blends well with his actual tail. It's black and such, the right tone of black, and, yeah, looks really good this time on him. So it's like he never really lost the other half of his tail. That's good to see. Finally, Hiccup managed to do that. With all the techniques that Hiccup has done and with the contraptions he's built, just keep getting better and better. And by the way, because coming back to Gobber, because the more moments with Gobber, especially with those group of tiny dragons, the hobgobblers, still funny, of course, but, eventually, because Gobber would, I think, grow fondly with those breed of dragons. Well, not to mention that those breed of dragons would be very helpful later on. So, at one point, and meanwhile, Valka and her dragon Cloudjumper are, doing some patrolling or something, and, point being is that they discover to else that has to do with Grimmel and what he's going to do next, with what they've discovered. And when, Valka and Cloudjumper, they make their way back to, the new Isle of Berg, basically. Because, telling her son and the others about what Grimmel's doing, and, hundreds of Viking ships, and, this has to do with going after Hiccup and the others, to get the dragons. And, this time, Hiccup is going to take it upon himself, along with the other dragon riders, to go after Grimmel and bring him in. Just, going after him once again, and thus that's what they do. They proceed to go to where to find Grimmel, but little do they know that they are falling into yet another trap. And also, can't forget to mention, because, the special gear that Hiccup, Astrid, and the other dragon riders have, their very own flying gear, made out of, the dragons, layers and such, their own gliders, you know what I mean? They're really cool, and because, of course they, especially in the third film, they come in handy, so but again, like I said, when, Hiccup and Valka and the others trying to capture and bring in Grimmel, again, they have fallen into yet another trap, and with them encountering all of the dragons that are trained to kill and take on Hiccup and the others, and with flames being, blown and so on, eventually Hiccup and the others, they do manage to escape, and man, because some of the music and score in the third installment, pretty good, especially there's some choir at times. Obviously for certain moments that require a bit of choir, so, anyways, chorus and such, but anyways, so, they managed to escape and, managed to get out of, Grimmel's trap. However, they left one behind. Ruffnut, because I didn't think I quite realized that. Maybe I knew a little bit, because I didn't fully realize that, that this happens where Ruffnut accidentally gets left behind, and she makes no big deal about it, apparently. And even Grimmel's a bit surprised, because what the, but obviously, because Ruffnut's gonna be held prisoner, and and golly, because what happens when we come back to Ruffnut and her time being, Grimmel's prisoner, but until I get there in just a moment, because, when they made their way back, they, of course, realized that one's missing, and that being Ruffnut. Even Tuffnut, he's not worried about the fact that they left his sister behind. And knowing those two, because Tuffnut finding his sister annoying. Each of them find each other annoying, but still, not once. Kind of, showing a little bit of affection because they're brother and sister, but still, most of the time, and good majority, because, getting on each other's nerves and just, that's why, Ruffnut and Tuffnut, they're great characters, and especially because, over at Epic Universe with the Isle of Berg, because them being walk-around / meet and greets, they're excellent. They're really good. Anyway, so, and Hiccup does feel bad about this, and not to mention that he can't do this without Toothless, because, Toothless has still not come back, and Hiccup feels that he is nothing without Toothless and not strong and so on without Toothless. But even, for Valka, because with what she shares with Astrid, and, well, Astrid knowing this too, because, and by showing Hiccup that he's more, he is strong and so on, even without Toothless, Besides, Hiccup doesn't have Toothless. He has everybody else. You see, yeah. And Astrid, along with her dragon, Stormfly, Astrid tells Hiccup that they're gonna go get Toothless back, and eventually, then they will go and rescue Ruffnut. But coming back to Ruffnut, because, now that was a pretty funny sequence, because Ruffnut does not shut up, and does get Grimmel on his nerves. I mean, he's trying to keep it together, and while he's trying to lay out the next plans on what he's going to do to go after Hiccup and to get the dragons, most notably Toothless, Ruffnut just going on about, like the mentioning of, say, Hiccup, her brother, and so on, but at one point, mentioning about the new island. Yeah, so Ruffnut accidentally gave that away to Grimmel, and finally, and knew that this was coming, right? Where Grimmel can't take it anymore, and, he calmly, as the best he can, not being aggressive or anything like that, sets Ruffnut free, and just, I gotta say, because if I didn't establish this before, I feel as though that Ruffnut is probably one of my favorite characters from How to Train Your Dragon. I'm just saying. And with Kristen Wiig's voice performance, especially right here, that's so great. Yeah. I mean, obviously, because the writers of Berk from, Tough Nut, Rough Nut, Fish Legs, and Snotlout, well, they're the comic relief. They're those characters in the realm of animation that are the sidekicks and comic relief. But still, they're very loyal and being good dragon riders. Alongside with Hiccup and Astrid. Yeah, but as I was saying, Ruffnut being let go, and also with one of the dragons that was by her side. I mean, but really, because for Ruffnut and Tough Nut, they have that two-headed dragon, but still. Both Ruffnut and this tiny dragon that, Ruffnut does ride on, they're set free. And, but it's a good thing that Grimmel did spare Ruffnut, and, I mean, eventually when he did get one big evidence where to locate Hiccup and the others this time on this new island. So, after Ruffnut is let go, well, because now that Grimmel knows, we know what he's going to be doing next and where to locate the Vikings of Berk and with that, the dragons. And, the same goes for the Night Fury. Meanwhile, coming back to Hiccup, Astrid, and Stormfly, at one point they do, find, and as I mentioned, this big waterfall, and, even Stormfly, especially, flying down, and as I recall, Stormfly can sense what is down beneath those waterfalls, and that's, underground and from the ocean, it's amazing, and because Astrid and Hiccup and Stormfly, they discover the hidden world, and man, because the hidden world, which, again, the hidden world, and as I read in the description / the story, it's called Caldera, and again, a hidden land that holds the key to saving Toothless and the Toothless's fellow dragons. Not to mention that Toothless, he is the alpha of all the dragons of Berk, so just wanted to mention that just in case. But as I was saying, Hiccup, Astrid, and Stormfly discovering Caldera, aka the Hidden World. And because it's beautiful. The Hidden World is amazing looking. And again, the animation in How to Train Your Dragon 3, The Hidden World, it's amazing, of course, beautiful. And with seeing what the Hidden World is like, and because, Hiccup and Astrid are amazed by this, and when they see all of the other dragons, and when they discover and find that Toothless and the Light Fury are present, and, well, turns out that Hiccup, Hiccup and Astrid, they see that, Toothless, he's now basically become the leader / the king of all the other dragons. Also, I'm sure maybe some of you did notice this, that breed of dragon with those tusks, from the second film. I believe, the good one, because, we see another one of that, and because it makes a very quick appearance in the Hidden World, which is really cool. But at one point, Hiccup and Astrid, their cover is blown when some of the dragons start to try to attack and kill Hiccup and Astrid. Toothless can sense that, Hiccup and Astrid are present, and he's not going to let his friends, especially Hiccup, get killed. And even, butting the dragons and getting them not to kill them. I mean, eventually, Toothless does save them, and then Stormfly catches up to them, and they make their way out of the Hidden World and back to the island. And, by this point, Hiccup does feel bad about this, and, because a moment between them and, Hiccup realizing that, Toothless is where he belongs and whom he's found. But then at one point, the Light Fury actually followed them back. So, and, not to mention that there was at one point where Hiccup was starting not to trust the Light Fury. I mean, little did Hiccup really knew, but in the end, and with the Light Fury falling in love with Toothless, that all changed for her, because the Light Fury was sent by Grimmel to track them down and follow them, but that changed for her, and because the Light Fury followed them back, something happens where, the Light Fury and Toothless are captured by Grimmel. Yes, being captured by Grimmel and, thus them in chains and, all of the other dragons that are under Toothless's lead, again, him being the alpha, they follow Toothless even with him being captured. And, of course, Grimmel knowing this, and, the plan is going as he intended, with having captured the Night Fury, and that the Night Fury is the alpha to all the other dragons of the island of Berk, by luring all the dragons to where they're gonna go next. Man. And all of the Vikings, including, most notably Hiccup and his fellow dragon riders, they have no dragons. What are they supposed to do now? By the way, I know I haven't brought this up yet, but I'm going to, and I am now. The fact that, I think, just 2 times, we get flashback sequences that involve young Hiccup and his father, Stoic. And Stoic, once again, being voiced by Gerard Butler, of course. Because, the flashback sequences with Hiccup and Stoic, they're pretty good. And it's great to see that, even though that, Stoic died, we still get him in this movie, but only, through flashbacks. And seeing young Hiccup as a child, and of course, this is before, the events of the first How to Train Your Dragon film, and, this is especially after, at that time, Valka was presumed to be lost forever. Because, with what happened and how it was explained in the second film, until they discovered that she was alive and well, and became a full-time, dragon lady. And by the way, because young Hiccup in the flashbacks being voiced by young A.J. Kane, the flashback sequences, again, because, Stoic explaining to his young son Hiccup that, about that for 7 generations they have lived on the island of Berk, and that Stoic's grandparents and their grandparents before them, etc., having been the leaders and looking after those on the island of Berk, and now that Stoic is the man in charge of the island of Berk, and one day Hiccup will do the same. And man, because how times had changed and how populated the island of Berk is now with the dragons, and now that, the humans and the dragons are at peace, especially on the island of Berk. And another flashback, because one moment where young Hiccup, he was thirsty, and he came in, downstairs in the main room, seeing his father crying, and just, And a moment between them, and where even young Hiccup, he asks his father, Stoic, if they'll have a new mother, like if he'll have a new wife, and him having a new mother, but Stoic makes it clear to Hiccup that, there won't be a new mother because, Hiccup's mother, Stoic's wife, was the only woman he ever loved and always have and would until, he and Valka would reunite. And that hits hard some more because with what was in the second film and now with this, you get my point. But just overall, the flashback sequences and that Hiccup has, remembering when he was a child and certain moments that he had with his father, they're pretty good. And just overall, it's great to see that, we do get Stoic in this, and Gerard Butler, obviously, once again voicing Stoic. That was great. But anyway, so back to where I was. Now that I finished talking about those flashback sequences, because by this point, all of the dragons, following Toothless, who's now held prisoner, along with the Light Fury, and Hiccup and the other dragon riders, they are without dragons, and what are they going to do? And, because, some encouragement that comes from Astrid to Hiccup, because, Astrid explaining, that, with what happened in the first movie, and that Astrid became the person she is today because of him. And with the mentioning of Toothless and what Toothless had done, that goes for both Hiccup and Toothless, especially for Hiccup. Just, that sequence and with what, Astrid had to say, and I think, some of Valka, that was really good. And, finally, because Hiccup, having the encouragement and telling his fellow dragon riders that they can save the dragons even though they don't have dragons. And with those special flying contraptions they have, they can use those. And thus, that's what they do. And, just so happens, not far away are the ships, that are being led by those three main Vikings and with Grimmel, So thus, they use their flying contraptions to go and rescue Toothless and the others. And turns out that Grimmel actually then flat out betrays the three Vikings, by not giving them the Night Fury. Because, he agreed to get the Night Fury, but he didn't say anything about bringing it back to life and for them to have the Night Fury. And then, Hiccup and the others arriving, and thus the battle begins. And even when, say, Valka, Gobber, and Eret, they join in the fight, especially taking on those three main Vikings. And all the other bad Vikings that, the dragon riders take on, and by freeing and rescuing all of the dragons, and a romantic moment between Hiccup and Astrid at one point. And, not to mention that, Ruffnut, she did make her way back to the island before, Toothless and the Light Fury were captured. Just, almost forgot to mention that. And, because, Ruffnut, because she didn't look back, and that's not what she does, because Hiccup and Astrid asked her if she noticed if she was followed or anything, and, she made it clear to them that she never looks back. What were you thinking, Ruffnut? Like, do you realize the stake that we're in? Just, anyways. But, it's not to say that it's not Ruffnut's fault, just, anyways. But just overall, the battle sequence was pretty cool. And when, by freeing the dragons, and even when, say, those hobgobblers, because, and with Gobber having interacted with them, they do some good, helping out Gobber and taking out some of the Vikings. It's funny. And eventually, because, when it comes to, say, Toothless and the Light Fury, well, because, and with what Grimmel does, and Hiccup helping out, with Toothless, and because when Toothless is rescued, Hiccup and Toothless go after Grimmel, who is taking the Light Fury hostage, and how are they supposed to hit Grimmel without hitting the Light Fury? But then, at one point, Grimmel, once again shooting another dart with the, liquid from his dragon, Toothless taking it and saving Hiccup and such, taking the injection, and, the Light Fury has a choice by either rescuing Hiccup or Toothless. Just, yeah, that whole sequence is crazy, and with what Grimmel does, just, yeah, overall. Yeah, I mean, eventually, because for the Light Fury, she does some good where she does rescue Toothless, gently landing him on the island, and then going after Hiccup. And not to mention that Hiccup and Grimmel were kind of in a bit of a tussle. And, well, I mean, yeah, because I remember clearly now, because Hiccup sacrificed himself to, have the Light Fury save Toothless after being injected. So, yeah. But, of course, eventually, the Light Fury able to save Hiccup, and, well, Hiccup detaching his mechanical leg, because Grimmel was holding on to it, and yeah, once detaching, yeah, Grimmel falling to his death, presumably drowning, because, well, presuming that he can't swim, because, I mean, that's the last we see of Grimmel, so we're left to assume that, yeah, he more likely drowned, so yeah, but, yep, sayonara, Grimmel, that's the end of him. But anyways, so yeah, all ends well where, yeah, Grimmel is defeated, as well as those bad Vikings. Actually, because, like, when Valka, Eret, and Gobber took on those 3 main Vikings, that's pretty much the last we saw of them. So, obviously, we presume that they were defeated. So, yeah. But, yeah, again, Hiccup rescued by the Light Fury. Toothless is okay. And in the end, Toothless, as well as all the other dragons, they are set free, no longer with the Vikings. They are now to live their lives and, well, make their way to the hidden world. Yeah, and, Hiccup apologizing to Toothless because he should have focused on what Toothless really wanted and so on, yeah. And a sweet moment where, yeah, all of the Vikings and the dragons that were attached to one another, because, Astrid with Stormfly, Valka with Cloud Jumper, and Gobber with his dragon that he calls Grumpy, and Elliot with his dragon, etc., etc. Yeah, in the end, they're all set free, and still, all of the dragons under Toothless's leadership now follow him, and thus making their way to the hidden world. Yeah. And eventually, and to speed things up some, because, yeah, up to the end of the film, because, well, by this point, yes, the new island that they have found, being their new official home, they've built the houses and villages and such, and by this point, up to winter time, we see that Hiccup and Astrid finally get married. Yes, now they're both the leaders and such of the island of Berk. And some of the characters, getting a bit emotional, especially goes for Fish Legs, because crying on Rough Nut, and Rough Nut, liking someone who's sensitive. And yeah, this would eventually lead to them actually becoming a couple. So yeah, even like, say, Tough Nut, because if anybody needed to cry, then he'd allow them to cry on him. Just, yeah, that's pretty funny. Yeah, so it's great to see that finally, in the end, Astrid and Hiccup, they did get married. And, well, the dragons, even Toothless, not being present at the wedding, but, And, well, the movie doesn't end there because, well, years later, the aftermath/epilogue, we see Hiccup, Astrid, they now have children of their own. A daughter and a son. And, yeah, we even see Hiccup sporting a beard. And, yeah, because, like, their kids didn't really have voices, yeah. Oh, and I also can't forget to mention him because Randy Thom, he is the voice of Toothless and all the various dragons, yeah. But he's uncredited, but just, hey, can't leave him off. Also, some of the other voice cast members, can't forget to mention because, yeah, Robin Atkin Downs voices Ack, Carry On Elliott as Horak, and Trapper, Gideon, Emery, Phlegma, yeah, Ashley Jensen, and that's all of them. So yeah, but as I was saying, because Hiccup and Astrid, they now have 2 children of their own, a son and daughter, and by this point, they're out in the ocean, and, well, this is where they have a reunion with Toothless. And by seeing the Light Fury, and well, Toothless and the Light Fury got busy. Because, yeah, they have little dragon cubs of their own. You know, best way I can put it, but just, yeah. And, well, Toothless hadn't seen Hiccup in a long time, and, yeah, it takes a few seconds for Toothless to sense the smell and scent of Hiccup, and, yeah, the children are a bit scared at first, but, yeah, but then, you know, when telling their kids that it's okay and, you know, let them come to you, and by reaching out their hands, just like what Hiccup did, yeah, and, yeah, all ends well, and, the fact, because, you know, it's very sweet and emotional what would happen next for Hiccup and Astrid. They got married and they have children of their own. And Hiccup's doing some narration. He did at the beginning and thus at the end. And, yeah. And that, you know, the mentionings of that one day there will be peace with the dragons and so on. Just, yeah. Just what a great way to end off the third film. And the end credits, they're really cool because with a song that plays, but also a recap on the first and second films. Some, you know, footage from the first two films. Just, yeah. A great way to end off the third film. Just, yeah. How to Train Your Dragon, The Hidden World, was really good. I really enjoyed the third installment. It was a great way to round off the franchise, you know, with what the story had to offer. Yeah, from the story, the characters, a few new faces that step in, most notably the villains, new dragons we see, the funny, emotional moments, the intense moments, the action, the suspense, the beautiful animation, the music and score by John Powell, Dean DeBlo's direction, with what goes on with these characters, the chemistry and such, just... yeah, overall, How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World was excellent. Definitely. Not a disappointment. Yeah. And I'm giving How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, well, yeah, just, yeah, what the heck. 10 out of 10 stars. Yes. 10 out of 10 stars for How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. Yeah, because I really enjoyed it, and I think, yeah, 10 out of 10 is no problem. Just, yeah. Yeah, just again, I really enjoyed How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World, and I'm sure the same goes for all of you. And yes, what about you guys? What did you think of How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World itself, the third and final installment of the How to Train Your Dragon animated franchise? I mean, you know, there would still be more How to Train Your Dragon materials after this, like another Christmas special, but that's another story. Did any of you get to experience this in theaters? What are some of your favorite moments with the characters? Do you think that, like, some things that I pointed out and commented, like, you know, not that much for, like, say, Gobber, Valka, Aerith, but I think, you know, overall, it was well executed with how much we got of them. Do you think that that wasn't bad at all? And what about the flashback sequences where we do get stoic? The villains, the new dragons we see, the hidden world, the unexpected moments, you know, the funny emotional moments, you know, your favorite moments, and just, yeah, just what more do I have to say? And of course with the ending, like, surely, because you got a bit teary-eyed when it came to the ending, just to see Hiccup and Astrid having kids of their own, and when they reunite with Toothless, just, yeah. Again, what more do I have to say? Overall, what do you think of How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World itself? And if it's one of your favorites in the How to Train Your Dragon films, one of your top favorite DreamWorks animated films, and with what I've had to say, you know, and what did you think of my review? Just, yeah, leave comments and give this review video a like, as always. And so, with all that being said, thank you very much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed my review of How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World. More review videos are coming your way. They're going to be awesome. Keep looking forward, and I will see you guys in the next video / review. And with that, sequel movie week has come to a close. Another sequel movie week has come to a close. Just, yeah. And this was fun, once again, to do this. With the film sequels that I've reviewed, there were some good ones, and yeah, can't wait for the next one. definitely. So again, thank you very much for watching. Take care, and until the next sequel movie week, and until the live-action How to Train Your Dragon remake, peace out.